Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Darsh Shah.
And I'm Dr. Altamash Raja.
And welcome to Medicine Redefined,
a podcast where we will explore the often overlooked but necessary components of health, what we consider to be the fundamentals.
We will investigate topics and practices that can give you and your patients the best chance to optimize a healthy lifestyle. It's time to move the needle forward and put the health back in healthcare. It's not a secret that doctors have a hard time creating a professional-looking digital presence. Having a dynamic website, ranking in Google, or growing your own volume of patient reviews are not easy tasks. We're too busy to figure it out on our own. Over the last 20 years, Advice Media has developed a pyramid of success to help physicians do just this. Do you want to attract more patients, generate more calls and emails, enhance brand awareness, protect your online reputation? Schedule a demo with Advice Media to learn how. On top of that, receive a $60 Amazon gift card just for chatting with them. 3 in 5 patients will choose one provider over another because of a strong online presence. Are you making sure you're the one who stands out? Don't delay booking your demo today. Go to drpodcastnetwork.com/advice media. That's drpodcastnetwork.com/advice media. Okay, to all the Harry Potter fans out there, Albus Dumbledore said that happiness can be found even in the darkest of times if one only remembers to turn on the light. And light is exactly what we will be talking about today. Altamash and I were joined by Roudy Nassif, co-founder of Viva Rays, which is an eco-friendly blue light blocking company focused on reducing junk light, promoting health, and ensuring that you are living life to your fullest. Roudy was actually a civil engineer who was staying up late, waking up with low energy and motivation, and eventually became depressed. Once he realized that his health was quickly deteriorating, he quit his job and traveled the world, which led him on a journey of learning about nature, quantum physics, biology, and essentially about himself. Therefore, he realized how important life is and what an enormous impact it has on health. So in this episode, we delve into the basics of light, its history, what it is, and how we can interact with it so that we can use it as a tool for our own health. It's an absolutely fascinating episode. And I must disclose that, yes, I am an ambassador for Viva Rays. I actually have been using all 3 of their blue light blocking glasses for about the last year or so and have seen objective results. Through my Whoop data, I have seen that the most improvement in my recovery, sleep, heart rate variability, and resting heart rate comes whenever I choose to wear the Viva Rays blue light blocking glasses. And after listening to this episode, if you are interested in purchasing these glasses for yourselves, I will share a discount code. Enjoy. All right. Hello, everyone. Today we got a special guest, Roudy Nassif. Roudy, it's been awesome to connect with you again here. I know we connected about 6 months ago when I was interested in getting blue blocking glasses, and you led me in the right direction. And I've been loving the blue blocking glasses that you've created. But today we're going to talk about light therapy, blue blocking glasses, circadian rhythms. This has been a hot topic lately. I've been seeing a lot of people get on the bandwagon, if I may say that, about blue blocking glasses. But start off and tell us as to why light is such an important topic now.
Hey, Darsh. My pleasure. Thanks for the introduction. My name is Roudy Nassif, and I'm the co-founder of Viva Rays. I know that many of the audience here are driven by a desire to create a better world and life quality for ourselves, our loved ones, our patients, and for the society in general. And we are so focused on improving ourselves and our practices. And in doing so, we work exceedingly hard, so often until late at night, without realizing the negative impacts that we have brought onto our bodies. So I know that most of you here practice and perhaps teach a more holistic approach to wellness through meditation, breathing, and not to mention a healthy diet and exercise as a way to maintain your physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. But what if I told you that there's something else that can complete that equation? The purest form of energy that we constantly surround ourselves with, and yet just not realize how deeply it affects us.
Mm-hmm.
So this powerful form of energy is called light, Darsh. And as we spoke about before, if we look up the definition of light, it's as superficial and simple as something that makes vision possible. However,
Mm-hmm.
it's much more profound and influential than that. This ball of electromagnetic radiation that we call light is a tool that can physically, emotionally, and spiritually transform our lives.
Hmm.
And not so many people realize, especially in our modern world, that it's a double edged sword. It
Hmm.
can either heal you or make you ill and depressed. So, today, in our conversation, I want to
Mhm.
take the audience on an eye opening journey. And I want to unveil to the audience the true power of light.
Let's do it. Yeah.
I think that light is a powerful source of energy that fuels our life. And basically, I think light is the fundamental missing link in our current self care routine that will help us unlock our optimal quantum health. So today I'm wanting also to provide a lot of tips, strategies,
Hmm.
and tools in order to elevate your light environment to a whole new level in alignment with nature, so you can fully master your sleep, have more energy and focus, and become more productive during your working hours.
Wow, Rudy. I mean, that is truly profound, and I really appreciate you kind of painting that picture for us how important light is. I mean, all of us share this, and it's such a low hanging fruit, right? Darsh and I are always talking about this on the show about the low hanging fruit and making sure that we check off those boxes before we start getting into the sexy things, the nuanced approaches of how to optimize our diet and wellness and that kind of stuff. And light is something that's just so basic, so fundamental, that's you know easily accessible to all of us. Right, we just got to kind of get outside, and over the years we've gotten further away from natural light and more towards artificial light. And so we're going to definitely talk more about the differences between the two, and why maybe one is more beneficial than the other. But I'd like to take a step back for a second and learn more about your interest in this space. I mean, you so eloquently described the importance of light. A little bit you touched on, just on a holistic level. But I'm curious is, why you're even so interested in this in the first place, and maybe your journey into wellness to begin with.
Yeah, totally. So my personal journey with wellness and with light, I would say, began as a kid at school who was struggling with agitation, headaches, and inability to focus. And I was then labeled to have ADHD. And unfortunately, I lived most of my life believing that. Growing up, I turned into a night owl who often felt depressed and disoriented.
Hmm.
My life felt so meaningless. And as a civil engineer, it felt void of purpose. So I decided to leave my job and travel to Canada, hoping for a new beginning over there. So
Hmm.
I really wanted to pursue my passion and my dream of starting my own practice in biomechanical engineering. But the problem was that every morning I woke up late, feeling drained, tired, aimlessly dragging myself out of bed, and filled with negativity. I was feeling dead from the inside, literally. And for so many years, I tried different modalities in order to feel better. I saw
Hmm.
a therapist, I meditated, I experimented with several diets and herbal formulas.
Yep.
And while these modalities helped me to plant great seeds, nothing helped me to heal my depression and reverse my night owl behaviors.
Hmm.
So I ended up feeling more stuck and hopeless. Then, about 5 years ago, something amazing happened. I was home, desperately researching the web and looking for ways and techniques to heal my depression.
Hmm.
And I stumbled upon an episode on YouTube called "Artificial Light is Killing Us." by Dr. Jack
Huh.
Cruz, a neurosurgeon from the States. I don't know if you guys heard of Dr. Jack Cruz.
I haven't. We'll definitely look it up though.
Yeah, I highly recommend his work. But essentially, he was
Okay.
explaining how light affect our mental health, sleep, and energy. And he said the right type of light can heal you, and the wrong type of light can make you ill, depressed, and obese.
Hmm.
I was intrigued and borderline in disbelief. However, I felt so keen to investigate more. I
Mhm.
remember asking myself the question, like, how is it that light can affect us so deeply? And this question led me to learn more about the mitochondria. I'm pretty sure you guys know what mitochondria is, but I'm going to give a little definition of what mitochondria is. It's the
Yeah,
power
please
engine
do.
of our cells that burns the food that we eat and produce all of our energy.
Hmm.
Basically, I learned from from Dr. Jack Cruz and several other mentors that mitochondria produce more energy when charged with sunlight during the day, and it needs deep rest and full darkness to repair itself at night.
Hmm.
Now, the problem was that I was exposed to very little sunlight during the day, and I was sabotaging myself with late night phone, computer use, and artificial light exposure, which destroyed my melatonin, the most important hormone for the engine to repair itself at night. And this explains why I was still struggling with my health, even after optimizing my diet, my meditation, and my exercise. I was overexposing my body and my eyes to artificial light at night, which was
Yeah.
damaging the engine in my body.
Hmm.
And basically at this point, as I started understanding more the mitochondrial genome, I honestly felt really empowered. And the reason so, because I have mentioned by the beginning of the podcast that growing up, I've been led to believe that I had ADHD, and
Hmm.
I was surrounded by the limiting conception, or rather misconception, that I am the victim of my genes, which meant that I am who I am because of whom I come from and my
Hmm.
hereditary genetics. However, this wasn't actually true, because what I learned from Dr. Wallace, a Nobel Prize winner, that
Hmm.
conventional medicine has been looking in the wrong genome for so long. And Dr. Wallace, he showed that 95% of our modern chronic diseases start in the mitochondrial genome, and that the
Hmm.
mitochondrial genome is deeply influenced by the environment. So what that meant is that we have the power to reverse our genetic expression and reverse disease by changing the condition that we live in. And I love this sentence by Dr. Jack Cruz, which he goes and says, we simply can't become healthy in the same environment that made us sick. I I I,
Hmm.
I wonder if this resonates. And and basically, like, when I realized this myself, I decided to stop hammering myself with approaches that were just leading me down a rabbit hole, and I decided to change the environment that I was living in. So this is where I got excited, because I took off on a 6-week camping adventure to a rural farm in Quebec with my current business partners.
Hmm.
We worked outdoors all day, and shortly after dusk, our only source of light was candle, fire, moon, and stars. After 3 days, something miraculous happened. For the first time in years, I was able to sleep early and wake up before the sunrise, sparkling with motivation and energy. I felt so productive, danced, cooked, hiked, and learned more about light and circadian rhythm.
Wow.
And that vast farming field, man,
Hmm.
put it under the power of the sun, I was feeling exhilarated. I felt like
Yeah.
this moving energy traveling up and down my spine, and it kind of like reawakened me to the privilege and the gift to feel alive once again. And I'm talking about someone who was feeling deeply depressed and unable to connect with with anything in life. And imagine what a shift, like in only 3 days.
Yeah, I mean, Rudy, what's very inspirational about what you said is that you took a problem that so many people have, right, that are living in this world currently with that same exact issue, being depressed, kids being told that they have ADHD, waking up groggy, not being able to fall asleep, right? It's like you said, 95% of those chronic diseases. Yet you stumbled across a YouTube video that changed your entire life and outlook. And a lot to unpack there, right? In terms of Dr. Cruz saying that light can either be therapeutic and heal, or it can lead to disease. You also mentioned things like the mitochondria, right? And these are all things that we can definitely delve deeper into.
100%.
But let's talk about the history of light therapy, kind of where this started from. And I'm sure it started way years ago. And me and Altamash talk about this all the time. There's a pendulum to everything, right? So light therapy might have started a long time ago, and then you come with that pendulum, and people start to forget about it. And I think now in the modern day, we're starting to reintroduce it. So take us through a little bit about the history of light therapy.
Yeah, sure. As my passion grew bigger and bigger about light, well, I actually discovered the uh, most of the things that we are coming to understand about light, a lot of the ancient civilizations already recognized and practiced. So basically, like ancient Egyptians, whose technologies and achievements remain a mystery to our current understanding. They built elaborately fashioned temples of light to treat disease. Also, the ancient Greeks built Heliopolis, the ancient city of the sun, and were the first to document the countless benefits of sunlight and light therapy. And it was actually rediscovered in Europe back in the 1970s. So that to say that our modern science started establishing this understanding around 1970s, realizing that light doesn't only serve for visionary purposes. In fact, vision is a tiny fraction of the role that light plays in our life. So
Hmm.
imagine, like, we all think of light as turning on a bulb or turning it off, and none of us have thought about the deep and profound impacts that light can touch our biology and even our DNA with. And basically, like, since then there has been four major scientific discoveries that have fundamentally changed our understanding about the power of light on every aspect of our life. And it's gonna blow your mind because you're gonna be like, whoa, like, how is that? But because the first discovery is actually by Albert Einstein's, and it's the law of relativity, E equal mc square. And while this hasn't been really integrated into medicine, what this equation tells us is that energy and mass are exactly the same. The only difference is the environment that each side of the equation is in. In other words, when we slow light down, we create things of mass. And that means that everything in front of you at this moment, including you and the planet, at one point used to be light and is profoundly influenced by light.
Hmm.
Now, I'd like you to ponder on the beauty of this for a moment and think about it. Through the light that enters our eyes every morning and every day, we are being recreated with new life. So, the quality of light that enters our body through the eyes will create the quality of our life. And this is why it's extremely important to maximize healthy light from sunlight and to decrease the detrimental effects of junk light, which we'll talk and touch base upon more in our conversation. But I'd like to talk and continue the sequence of these scientific discoveries. The second scientific discoveries is also by Albert Einstein. And Albert Einstein discovered the photoelectric effect, which means matter generates a weak electric current when light shines on them. Okay, and hold on with me. I'm going to explain what that means. And often things discovered in science are the reverse engineering of things happening in the human body.
Mm-hmm.
Also very true in this case, with the discovery of Dr. Fritz Holwisch in the 1970s, showing that light entering the eyes is converted into an electric current that turns on our pituitary gland and activate our metabolic functions. Okay, so basically, light entering the eyes is captured by photoreceptors in the eye and is converted into an electric signals which travel to the hypothalamus in the brain and serve as the most powerful and important information that regulates when we sleep and when we wake up, and has the power to turn on or off different neurotransmitter in the brain that regulate our moods, our digestion, our ability to be creative and solve problems, and so on. Okay, so this is not it. I'd like to talk about the fourth, and this one was mind blowing, and it's by Dr. Robert Becker, who's the author of the book The Body Electric. I highly, highly, highly recommend this book for anyone who's looking to understand the body in an electric sense and how it relates to the electric universe, including the Earth and the Sun. So basically, Dr. Robert, he discovered that this electric current that we talked about from the photoelectric effect and that Dr. Fritz showed that actually gets converted in the eye is the key element to all regeneration, growth, healing, and well-being. He has a lot of studies showing how this electric current is the key element for regenerating cell stems, broken bones, etc. So basically, similar to how light charges a solar panel by generating a flow of electricity, this spark of light is what has enabled our mitochondria to evolve over the past 1.5 billion years from a single cell organism to become this supercar engine that can produce almost unlimited amount of energy and keep us moving all day long for decades. And for this, and coming back to the mitochondrial health, I like to use the analogy of a car. And just like a Ferrari's car, or rather a Ferrari's engine, requires fuel, oxygen, and a spark to create this internal combustion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And generate energy. In the same way, our mitochondria requires fuel in the form of food, oxygen when we breathe, and a spark in the form of light to ignite the process of metabolism. So bear with me. If the ignition system of the car is not functioning properly,
Mm-hmm.
Fuel alone will not be able to run that car. So if you have a car and basically like like the car stopped running well, if you go and fill up the car with the highest quality fuel, it won't solve the problem. It won't let the engine run again. You need to fix the engine of the car. And in the same way, in our society, we focus a lot on the food or on the fuel for our body, and without realizing that without having a strong engine, the fuel alone will not be able to fix the problem that is caused by a lack of the appropriate wavelength of light.
That's interesting, though, Rudy. I want to make sure that I'm not mistaken here from what I'm understanding, specifically to the point of food, because we spend a lot of time on this show talking about nutrition, right? I mean, when we talk about our five pillars of health, obviously nutrition tends to be one of them, along with several others, which I've talked about before. But
Right.
In terms of kind of what you talked about, our environmental triggers can kind of help flip these switches on and off, right? We've had previous guests come on and talk and say, when it comes to, people's predispositions to cancer and other types of diseases and non-communicable diseases that are responsible for mortality in the long run, everybody has this genetic code that's built, and the food and microbiome and those types of things within our body can kind of flip these switches. What you're suggesting is that light is one of those triggers, those environmental factors.
Right.
But from what I just understand that you said is that, food doesn't necessarily tend to do that. Did I understand that correctly, or am I mistaken from what I took away from what you just said?
Okay, I'll try to put it in another way. Food
Okay.
is very important, but what I'm trying to say is basically think that you're owning a beautiful car, right? And what does this car require to run well? It requires a good engine and it requires fuel. And basically, what I'm trying to say, if the engine is broken, fuel alone, which in this case will be the food that we're eating, will not be able to run that engine,
Right.
because the ignition system of the car itself is not working properly.
Right.
And based on these scientific discoveries, we now understand that light is the fundamental thing that
Okay.
actually trigger that spark for our mitochondria and our metabolic processes to function well. So even though food is extremely important, eating organic and whole food is great, but by only focusing on food and by ingesting or consuming junk light all the time and not getting the appropriate wavelength of light that will facilitate these metabolic processes, we won't be able to solve that problem.
Yeah. Okay. No, thank you for clarifying that. I suppose that obviously any single one of these pillars in a vacuum isn't going to be helpful, right? When we're talking about longevity and just health span in general. And I think that we kind of need to take a step back and kind of look at the big picture, because at the end of the day, the context matters, right? And somebody much smarter than I, when I asked him a specific question, said that, all these players kind of work collectively to give an individual the best opportunity, or an opportunity to be the best version of themselves. So you've kind of done a beautiful job giving us the backstory of, how light is fundamental to our health, and right, to kind of help that car function optimally. So you alluded to getting a lot of junk light. And I do want to talk a little bit more about that, because in today's day and age, we just simply cannot seem to get away. We're doing this interview virtually here, where all of us are getting blue light just bombarded into our faces. But that's just the nature of the beast, right? So before we do that, because I do think most people have heard of the term blue light, yellow light, those types of things, maybe it's worth kind of just explaining the different types of light. And you've talked about different wavelengths and which type of wavelengths are associated, and maybe even why that matters.
Right. So it's I'd like to check in first and see if we take the audience on a little journey to understand the relationship that we have with light, and how this has evolved over the
Okay.
past 150 years, and basically how this fundamentally affects our circadian rhythm.
Yes, please.
So basically, like when I was on that farm, and when I experienced this beautiful miraculous transformation, I was asking myself, like, how did that magic happen? Like I asked myself, like, was it light that mystically transfigured my life in as short as 3 days? Like, how is that possible? And as I was contemplating this question every night under the stars, it made me think of how our ancestors lived. For thousands of years, we have been exposed to a lot of sunlight during the day and a lot of darkness, firelight, moonlight, and stars light at night. Now think about it. This has changed drastically in the modern age. Since Edison invented the light bulb, basically our relationship with the light and dark cycles have fundamentally changed. And we have gained the power to light up our world 24 hours if we wish.
Yeah.
And as great and exciting this seems, there is a dark side to this light, and we are starting to see in what we call circadian rhythm mismatch in
Hmm.
people's body, which according to Dr. Benjamin Smart, a chronobiologist, and even Dr. Matthew Walker, a
Hmm.
neuroscientist, this leads to all kinds of chronic diseases such as cancer, anxiety, depression, loss of productivity, etc. Now, why is so? It's all related to our circadian rhythm, which I like to refer to as our 24-hour symphony. And in
Okay.
every symphony, if you've been and watched one, there's a conductor, a person who reads the notes and sends signals to the instrument players to tell them what to do, when to
Hmm.
start or stop, what notes to hit, how hard, how soft, etc. Now, here's the interesting part. In our bodies, this conductor is called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. And it's a tiny part of the brain that is reset every day by the rise and the fall of the sun. So basically, this conductor is responsible for telling all of the millions of cellular clocks in our mitochondria what to do, right? So like how do these cells know what to do? It's how our body knows when to wake up in the morning, when to eat, when to think of big problems, and when to go to sleep at night. So imagine if this conductor keeps on reading the wrong notes. What would the music sound like? I think it would sound awful,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
So imagine if this happens to your body, and it does every single
Hmm.
day. Every single day in our modern life, we do not allow our conductors to read the proper signals of light. We basically drawn it with artificial light that is mainly blue light. And guess what? When we do this makes our body and our brain think that it's 12 noon, summertime, all year long, and that we are only
Hmm.
supposed to be doing one thing rather than the multitude of self-healing functions that nature has equipped us with. So I hope this like give you and the audience a perspective of how we have fundamentally shifted relative to how our ancestors lived, and how this has fundamentally affected our relationship to the light and dark cycles.
No, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a great analogy to use a conductor and a symphony, and how all of our cells are kind of instructed by this light, which is the master of all. So recently, you as an expert, I've also heard other experts kind of talk about how to balance the circadian rhythm, and a lot of people talk about waking up, with the sunrise and quickly going outside and first thing in the morning, absorbing that light from the sun. So take us through, and of course we're in a world where the phone's right next to us, right? Right when we wake up, and the first thing we do is kind of open our phone, look at email, scroll through Instagram, et cetera, et cetera. Tell us why that is probably not the best strategy to get light into your eyes, and why it might be better to go outside and look at the sunrise.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to also like relate back to what I talked about, which is if I recall well, the third discovery that I mentioned by Dr. Fritz Hollwich, which
Hmm.
is light entering the eyes, converting into an electric current that turns on our pituitary gland. And while this might sound very technical, I'd like to give the audience a more straightforward in plain English of what that means. Light plays the hormonal, like the hormones in our body are either playing a harmonious symphony or a dissonant one. Okay, and it's actually light that is controlling the beauty of this symphony. And the reason why is because it's basically it's light that determine how alert, awake, and productive we feel, and how happy we feel during the day. And it will also dictate how if we get deep sleep at night, and our ability to repair, rejuvenate, and recalibrate. So in a nutshell, light will determine whether our hormones are playing a harmonious symphony or a dissonant one. And this all starts during morning sunlight. Okay, so the first light that we get into our eyes in the morning will determine the quality of the symphony that our body will play throughout the whole day. Now, basically, like, this answer is programmed by thousands of years of evolution in our eyes. Now, the reason why is because we have neurons in the eyes. They're called melanopsin ganglion cells. And while the name is not very important, what's most important is that these neurons are light sensitive and they are activated in the morning sunlight by the color temperature of sunrise. So basically, these neurons capture the photons of light and they convert it into electric signals that travels to the hypothalamus in the brain, or what I refer to as the conductor, right? So as I mentioned before, this conductor controls every cell and organ in our body. And I'm going to give an example of cortisol and melatonin, for instance. The reason you wake up in the morning is because, in response to sunlight, this part of the brain, the conductor, sends a signal to your adrenal gland to release the hormone cortisol and adrenaline. And this results in you beginning to feel more alert, awake, and focused. Now, the reason you go to sleep at night is because this part of the brain senses darkness and triggers the pineal gland to secrete melatonin, the most important hormone, to allow us to wind down and for the engine to repair itself. Now, it's extremely important to see the sunrise first thing in the morning, because like this healthy pulse of cortisol, when it happens, it's in response to morning sunlight. At this particular second, a cellular timer starts, which dictates when a different hormone called melatonin gets secreted from the pineal gland, about 12 to 14 hours from the release of the first pulse of cortisol. So most of us, we wake up in the morning and we look at our phones, and we basically miss this low solar angle that our neurons in the eye are waiting for to activate this very important relationship between cortisol and melatonin. You know, so by not getting this rhythm right, our days are, like, basically, like, our days are much darker because we spend so much time indoors and not getting this high brightness from sunlight that we need in order to activate these metabolic processes. And basically our night are getting much brighter, which is suppressing the melatonin production. So by not getting this cortisol melatonin relationship right, we're actually leading ourselves to adrenal fatigue. And I also mentioned Dr. Fritz. Dr. Fritz actually he showed in one of his studies how the stress hormone cortisol was significantly high when sitting under artificial blue light. So basically, cortisol at night should be around 1 microgram per deciliter. Okay, when I first did the test about 4 years ago, it was 10 microgram per deciliter, which is scarily very common. 95% of the clients that we work with who take this test show their cortisol peaking at night. And as a result, they sleep terribly, which takes a toll on their morning cortisol. And basically, it's a cycle that keeps repeating itself, because morning cortisol should be around 16 microgram per deciliter. And guess what? It's often low. Well, the reason why it's low is because people are not getting exposed to natural sunlight in the morning, and because their reservoir of cortisol is getting depleted because of cortisol being secreted chronically at times when it's not supposed to be secreted. So I hope this makes sense.
Yeah, Rudy, how was, just curious for the method of testing for that cortisol, what was the way that it was administered, the test?
It's a saliva.
Saliva test? Okay. Yeah, that's really interesting. I was always under the impression that the rise in cortisol actually is what prompts you to wake up in the morning, just from your natural circadian rhythm. Obviously, from everything that you've talked about in the first half hour, we need to understand that our circadian clocks, if they are altered in the sense, then that rise and fall is kind of going to be all over the place, which is what you were saying. But you're also suggesting, and it's got me thinking now, is that sunlight tends to be the precursor for cortisol or in the morning. Is that kind of what you're saying, or I mean, or is it more of a two-way street, or and they both tend to amplify each other?
Well, basically, like this secretion is endogenous, so it happens no matter what. However, it's definitely optimized by this relationship with the light and dark cycles, and
Yeah.
it goes much deeper than this because um, even like melatonin, the hormone of darkness, is actually produced in AM sunlight. And I think I'll talk a little bit more about this as we explore aromatic amino acids in the eye. And since we're actually like mentioning this, I'm gonna dive a bit deeper here and explain about those aromatic amino acids. So not so many people realize that serotonin, dopamine, and beta endorphins are produced in the eye in response to AM sunlight. So it turns out that morning light is what provides energy for the natural conversion of tryptophan into serotonin, which optimizes our mood, and into melatonin, which optimizes our sleep and recovery. So again, melatonin, the hormone of darkness, is produced in the AM light and is only activated in the absence of light at night.
Mhm.
Also, morning sunlight is what provides energy for the natural conversion of tyrosine into dopamine, which makes us feel motivated. Also, morning sunlight catalyzes the synthesis of beta endorphins, which is our body's natural opium, painkiller, and pleasure molecule. How cool is that? So basically,
Awesome.
there's another study by a circadian expert called Samer Hitar. He published a paper showing how light at night arriving to the eyes suppresses the release of dopamine the following day. So this means that you wake up feeling less happy and much more likely to be feeling disappointed and unsatisfied.
Hmm.
So in a way, nature has addicted us to her. And what happens when we don't let Mother Nature to build our dopamine, serotonin, and beta endorphins from sunlight, and rather deplete ourselves from junk lab? Unfortunately, since as human beings we are continuously trying to feel good, we will find other ways to feel good and raise our dopamine, such as porn, alcohol, sex addictions, too much television, phone, internet addictions, food addictions, etc.
Mhm.
And you probably guys know at least one person in your network who is deeply suffering from these addictions. And I was. And
Yeah.
basically, like, this is why I'm so passionate about this topic, because can you imagine, you know helping those people to step into their powers and harness the power of the full spectrum light diet naturally? Can you imagine if more and more people learn these skills in the world? I believe that this will enable us to basically ascend our consciousness to a whole new
Mhm.
level and live a much happier and fulfilling life. And I hope you're
Yeah.
with me on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Rudy, and your passion has been showing, right, with how much in depth you're going here, and the again the profound statements that you're making about how important light is. And it's funny that you mentioned this, right? I was listening to Dr. Andrew Huberman, which I know you've also listened to,
Yeah.
and he talks about how different species can not regulate. They know how much light needs to enter their eyes, right? For instance, dogs, which is why you'll see them like sunbathing, and then they know when to kind of get out of the light. And it's funny because I would say probably 1 month into wearing the Viva Rays blockers, when I wasn't wearing them at night, I was agitated. Like I could honestly feel agitated from the light. And it was a very strange, weird feeling because I've never been able to kind of feel that way before. And now even driving in the morning to work, it's almost like I know I need to take my glasses off in order to get sunlight in, and I have this need to put them back on whenever I feel like. So I don't know if that's just, things just happening, or if that's actually me just kind of getting used to the light and my natural rhythm of things. And I know we'll get into talking about the Viva Rays and kind of how they work and things eventually. But however you want to take this next, I mean, do you want to talk about the detrimental effects of blue light? Because I think, we've been talking a lot about how blue light is amazing, or sorry, just how light's amazing in general. But why is it that blue light is so bad for us?
Yeah, totally. And I totally relate to what you're sharing here, Darsh. Like when
Mm-hmm.
I when I and so many of our clients report similar things. Basically, like when they have been for so long bathing in what we call junk light, their retinal sensitivity basically have changed in relationship to how they respond to light. What I also learned from Andrew Huberman is that retinal sensitivity is very low during the day. What that means is
Mm-hmm.
that we need a lot of bright light to activate our sensor clock in the brain. But guess what?
Mm-hmm.
Retinal sensitivity becomes very high at night. And what that means
Okay.
is very little amounts of light could disturb our circadian rhythm, sleep, and master clock. But then the problem is that people get habituated to a cycle that is completely the opposite of how we're built in to function. And what that means is, as I mentioned before, people start getting habituated to getting like very low brightness during the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're spending so much time indoors, and they get habituated to a lot of light and bright light at night, which start reversing the relationship to how we're supposed to receive light. And as you mentioned that like when you start wearing the Viva Rays glasses, what happened there is like after a few days of wearing these glasses, you reclaim back the power of your eyes and this inner technology and how it responds to light. So basically, like you reactivate this intelligence in you that it knows that it's not supposed to see high bright light at night. It knows, like you could feel that agitation, you could feel
Mm-hmm.
that something is not right. And I'm gonna take I'm gonna take it from here and share a little story about one of my mentors, again, Dr. Jack Cruz, who was
Okay.
struggling with overweight issues for years. Basically, Dr. Jack Cruz, he turned his knee, and he was desperate to find a solution. He was extremely overweight, and his joints were suffering because of that. So he started dabbling with several diet modalities, and he ended up trying the keto diet. And while this helped him a bit, it wasn't the answer for his problem. And it wasn't until he discovered the power of light, until he was able to reverse his obesity and help thousands of people to reverse disease. So basically, Dr. Cruz shares his story on how using light protocols, he managed to lose 111 pounds in 11 months without changing his diet or without even exercising. And this is not to say that people should not exercise or should not pay attention to their diet. But basically, Dr. Jack Cruz says that blue light makes you fat. See, I'm gonna explain this a little bit more, and like the mechanics of it and the dynamics of it.
Yeah,
Basically,
please do.
blue light at night increases your cortisol, and since cortisol role is to provide glucose to prepare your body for the flight and flight mechanism, this increases your blood sugar levels and start leading to carbs and sugar cravings. Now, another like big important aspect is that a chaotic blood sugar level is equal to a chaotic mind and a chaotic emotions. And I love also like one of the stories that Dr. Sachin Patel shared with us, that after he started wearing his Viva daytime glasses, he had this monitor that shows his blood sugar level, and he started noticing that it was much more level, and he wasn't getting those crazy spikes after he was protecting himself from junk artificial light all day long.
You're talking about a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor.
Totally.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. And yeah, it was actually like Dr. Sachin Patel that took the experiment and opened my eyes on this fact. I knew it. I knew it. I understood the science behind it, but I myself haven't experimented with the what would the glasses like what type of difference would the glasses result in relationship to blood sugar level. However, Dr. Sachin tried this on himself and on several of his clients, and he started noticing that anytime he's consistently wearing the Viva glasses during the day, he wasn't experiencing those crazy spikes in his blood sugar levels. So another big aspect there about blue light. Blue light suppresses melatonin and anabolic hormones that are extremely important in activating cellular repair and regeneration at night. Also, blue light has been shown to increase inflammatory cytokines. And basically, the problem is that when inflammation increase, people become leptin resistant. And for people who are not familiar with what leptin is the hormone that causes you to feel full after every meal, right? And when leptin rises, it actually enters the hypothalamus in the brain, and as a result, the thyroid is gets regulated, which increases metabolism and increases growth hormone, and and and
Yeah.
and as a result, you increase your natural ability to burn fat.
Right.
However, chronic exposure to blue light raise those inflammatory in the body,
Hmm.
and the body becomes much less efficient at responding to leptin. So when the brain isn't correctly receiving the signals from leptin, you don't only lose your appetite, inhibiting benefits, but also your brain will decrease your energy levels in order to conserve energy. So as a result, you'll end up feeling more hungry and less motivated to exercise. And you'll end up,
Hmm.
with time losing your natural ability to burn fat. So all
Wow.
of this is the perfect recipe for obesity and chronic inflammation.
Wow, that's a lot. Yeah, and I guess if you look at the science, yeah, I mean, it definitely kind of checks out when you look at the cortisol balance, and the effects. And again, so we all know how complex and nuanced the body is, right? And I don't think any of us are saying that it's a one-to-one effect, but there's definitely impacts that light can have, that cortisol can have, that melatonin can have, right? And our circadian rhythm is for this reason that important. Rudy, I wanna get into why blue blockers may not be the same across the board. There's so many different companies, and I guarantee you tomorrow when I go through my Instagram, there's going to be an ad for another blue blocker company just because we're already talking about it. But tell us, tell us what makes a good blue blocker and why so many of them out there aren't aren't that effective.
Yeah, 100%. There's a lot of marketing gimmick around blue blockers. There's a lot of controversy in the market. And I'll start by sharing with you a little story about my frustrating hunt to get the right blue light blockers. And as I was learning about the detrimental effects of blue light, this led me through a journey of extensive research. And I actually discovered blue light blockers. And because I really wanted a solution, I wanted to feel better. I instantly went on and I bought 3 glasses. They were clear lenses. Okay, so after trying them for a few weeks, me and my partners didn't experience any benefits whatsoever. And what I quickly realized is that those clear lenses were a marketing gimmick. They basically block blue light up to 420 nanometer in wavelength, which is not emitted by LED bulbs and screens. So basically, the unwanted light from those devices was passing through still. It's as if trying to rinse your quinoa in a pasta strainer. The quinoa will end up passing through the holes. Those glasses were basically pointless and inefficient. And I know that this could be like a bit technical, and I hope that through this explanation, it's clear why clear blue light blockers don't work. And if not, maybe like you could give me or kind of like refer back, like give me a little feedback on whether this has been like clear enough, or you'd
Yeah,
like.
no, that was beautiful, Rudy. That absolutely was beautiful. You mentioned the specific wavelengths, like somewhere in the 420s. That's kind of what those lights were blocking out. What is a typical wavelength for blue lights? Where are they? Why does 420 not block it? Because I think a lot of people might not be familiar with the different types of wavelengths in nanometers.
Yeah, so this is why I wanted to make sure that it's easy and digestible. So basically, like blue light extends from around 400 nanometer in wavelength up to 490 nanometer in wavelength. Okay,
Hmm.
and basically, if you bring a very simple tool called spectrocolorimeter, which allow you to measure the light that is present in any given environment, you can have a visual understanding of the emission of different light bulbs and different devices. Now, what I did, I bought a professional spectrocolorimeter that is very advanced, and I was actually going on and like measuring different light devices and whatnot. And what I realized is LED bulbs and screens, they basically peak at 455 nanometer in wavelength. Okay. And if you observe the spectral curve emitted by those devices, they rarely or barely emit any light below 420 nanometer. So while those clear blue light blockers, yeah, they block blue light. However, they block blue light that is not actually emitted by those harmful devices that we are constantly surrounded with. And at this point, as I realized this, I went on and I bought 3 orange pairs from an online company. And while those orange pairs somewhat helped, something was still wrong. After some time, my partners and I, we started feeling unexplainable drops of energy, and we didn't know why. At this point, I felt really frustrated as I thought that eliminating blue light would be the answer to all of my problems. Unfortunately, this wasn't the case. And what I realized very quickly that blue light wasn't evil at all. In fact, blue light during the day is extremely important.
Hmm.
It stimulates our brain more than any other color. It boosts our energy levels, elevates our mood, and regulates our circadian rhythm. And by
Right.
now, you're probably thinking that this whole blue light controversy is extremely confusing, especially after, you know, uh, saying all the detrimental effects of blue light. But don't worry, I'm,
Hmm.
I'm here to make it simple. Blue light is
Okay.
actually not good, neither bad. It's relative. And its
Okay.
effect on us depended on the time of the day we are exposing ourselves to it, and whether or not it was proportionate and balanced with the other colors, with the other frequencies of colors. So the answer to the problem became much simpler. Guess what? Most of the blue light we are exposing ourselves to come from man-made artificial light, which we
Hmm.
call junk light. See, junk light can be much worse than junk food. I like to refer to it as the McDonald's of lighting. So basically, exposing yourself to junk light rather than natural sunlight and darkness is pretty much similar to consuming spoonful of sugars and fast food rather than whole organic and nutritious food. See, sunlight, if you look at the spectral curve of sunlight, it's very rich in blue light. But guess what? It's balanced with all of the other colors. However, in contrast, the spectral curve of a phone and LED bulb, as I mentioned before, peaks at 455 nanometer in the blue violet, which has been shown to be degenerative to the cells. And also these devices are very low in the blue turquoise and very low in the orange and in the red light, which have regenerative traits. And this explains why chronic exposure to, LED bulbs and screens can cause eye strain, headaches, drops in energy levels, etc. Now, when we talk about blue light, the equation changes completely at night.
Hmm.
There's a very small amount of light at night, and especially in the blue and green, has been shown to disturb our sleep, our circadian rhythm, and causes us to wake up feeling tired and less motivated.
Okay.
You know, and like if we think about it, it becomes very easily. Like the sun naturally changes its position in the sky throughout the whole day until it descends below the horizon at nighttime. And naturally, if we were to be outside, your body will be exposed to different temperatures of light and different amounts of blue light depending on the time of the day, and this will regulate your natural circadian rhythm and promote either wakefulness or sleepiness, right? So getting exposed to blue light in the same way all day, or even blocking blue light in the same way all day, is similar to living under a sun that emits the same light day, evening, and night. Can you imagine how destructive this can be to your health? And this is actually what's happening to most of the people living indoors. And as I realized this, and I knew that if we wanted to live harmoniously in our modern world, we needed a dynamic solution that provides our brain and our eyes with the right information of light. So as we kept searching for the right blue light blockers, we quickly realized that 95% of those companies, they were providing a one for all solution, and
Yeah,
and and they didn't provide scientific testings that validate their claim.
I see. Rudy, can I ask you a quick question here? When you talk about sunrise and sunset, you talk
Right.
about color temperature and why they're so important. What are the
Right.
different colors being emitted by both of them? Is it red light from the sunset, and that's why it's therapeutic?
Basically, during the sunset or the sunrise, there's a beautiful contrast between blue, yellow, and red that causes a color temperature of around 2100 kelvins. And our brain and our nervous system, they are attuned to respond to the changing color temperature in nature. And what that means is, as we witness a sunset, our eyes and our brain, our nervous system start witnessing this fading light, this decreasing light in color temperature, which signal naturally to our body that it's time to wind down, to relax, and to prepare for rest. And throughout evolution, think about it, like after witnessing a sunset, like the only source of artificial light that we could that I'm sorry, rather the only source of light that we could be exposed to would be fire and candles, right? And those emit a color temperature of around 1900 kelvins, which is extremely high in the orange and red and has no blue and green whatsoever.
Yeah, no, thanks for that explanation, Rudy. And I want to go back to this point that you made about blue light, especially, and I really appreciate kind of the explanation you gave about how we have to learn how to live harmoniously with that, right?
Mm.
And part of this expression, you touched on the concept that there are a lot of shades of gray, right? It's not truly just black and white, where blue light is all good or all bad, and we also have to understand like why it even exists.
Right.
This junk light, if we look back in history, one of the main reasons why a lot of technological advances have made towards blue light is because it gives that more, from an aesthetic standpoint, it gives that futuristic feel, right? There's a reason why Tesla, and when you go inside, obviously all of our computers and iPads and and cell phone, smartwatches, everything emits blue light. It's aesthetically pleasing to the eye. It gives that futuristic feel. Historically, if you look at it in kind of like submarines and cockpits and airplanes and other military grade systems, they routinely used orange and red light, which was designed for information density, right? It easily allowed the user to be able to process all types of information. Not only that, they knew it was good for night shifts. And also, when you go from looking at that type of light to looking, externally somewhere else, you don't have that after image effect that you do with blue light. So from a health perspective, it tended to be better. However, again, going back to kind of the aesthetic point, it blue light seemed to be better. But also from an efficiency standpoint, a lot of these LED lights, which have kind of made their way into our homes, into our, our kitchens and our TVs, from an energy saving point, from an environmental friendly standpoint, the LED lights are just like without question, they're better, right, than the old incandescent bulbs.
Right.
So there is some benefit to that regard, and we do have to kind of appreciate that. The problem becomes, is again going back to that pendulum, is when it swings. And now when we're falling asleep to Netflix during the pandemic, right, and we're falling asleep with our phones in our hand because we're scrolling through social media, or we're working, like sending that email until we like get into bed, or even when we're in bed, that's when the problem comes, right? That's when it's kind of altering the whole circadian rhythm. It's altering the melatonin you talked about. You even touched on cortisol and a bunch of other hormones, which we really appreciate. So this is where softwares like Flux has done a great job, right? A lot of Apple now has its own night shift mode, and actually even cars have that built in. And so that's one way to do it. That would be probably the most efficacious way to do it. It's not always accessible, but this is exactly where these blue light blocking companies come in. And this is where you guys have come in. So I'd love to hear more about what makes Viva Ray special now. I mean, we've talked a lot about the history, we've talked about the science. So let's think about moving forward. How can we incorporate blue light blocking glasses? And you've touched on, things that don't make good glasses. So Viva Rays, you've got a company, you've got a concept. What makes it special? And maybe even talk about the different types of glasses that you have.
Yeah, definitely. Before I dive in about this, I really appreciate the summary that you brought in, and the way you're looking at things, kind of like as a whole picture. And I'd like to mention that while LED lights are more energy efficient than incandescent lights, um, you know, from a zoomed in perspective, we can argue that, yeah, we are actually saving a lot of energy and whatnot. However, if we zoom out and if we start looking and measuring the amount of circadian mismatch that is happening in the world, and if we
Mhm.
had the ability to measure the amount of loss of productivity and the amount of chronic diseases and how much this is costing us as a human species, I argue the incandescent bulb would be much more efficient than LEDs then. And
That's a fair
regardless,
point.
regardless, I'm so excited because in Viva Rays, and again, before I start talking about the lenses, I'd like to share with you guys that we've been like working diligently on on some light innovations
Hmm.
that will prove to be revolutionary. And the beautiful things about LED lights is that they do not need to be toxic at all, and they could be customized in a way that is circadian and biological friendly. Now the problem is that there's not enough people asking for this. There's not enough people asking big manufacturers and big companies in the world to actually like alter the way they are creating their technologies.
Hmm.
So, having said so, I know that you also brought one important point about blue light. Yes, I appreciate your summary about how blue light makes things more aesthetically pleasing. but also there's another very important point, which often, big corporation, I argue that they use and for their favor, is like blue light causes a instant boost of dopamine, right? And basically, when that happens, if people are not tuned into raising their dopamine in nature, unfortunately, they start becoming very addicted to this boost through their phones. So this is another way also that I think as a society and as human beings, we can start reclaiming our power, and by directing our thoughts and by directing our desires in what we wish to see in this world. Because big corporation are not going to change anything if human beings and society in general do not wake up and do not realize the importance of these things and how they could affect our biology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's a great point. And again, I think, being in the hospital, I remember being a third, fourth year medical student, just staring at that blue light, and it was disturbing. And as me and Altamash, being in the hospital all the time, 90% of what we do is probably in front of the computer, writing notes, looking at history, H&Ps, all those types of things. And so we need that protection, honestly. And this is why I've just been loving the glasses that I have from you guys. So take us through why you have 3 different shades, when's the best time to use them, and kind of that transition from one to the next.
Definitely. So our daytime lenses, they are designed to transform the harmful narrow peak at 455 nanometer of the blue violet, which I mentioned before. This narrow peak that is emitted by LED lights, and it transform it into a more balanced and more natural distribution of all the colors. And this means that it will protect your eyes from junk light and basically eliminate eye strain and headaches. And when referring to our daytime glasses, we like to use the word transforming blue light rather than blocking blue light, which differentiates us from other yellow tinted glasses in the market. And after testing so many, we realized that those glasses are designed to block 100% of the blue light at 455 nanometer, which is very reductionist because there's no reason for us to eliminate blue light during the day. And in the process of doing that, they wipe out a lot of the blue turquoise that can be coming through the window, for instance. And this will actually start causing fatigue and sleepiness during the day.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, by wearing the Viva Rays Day Goes, it will allow you to absorb all of the blue turquoise, which means that you will feel optimally focused and energized during the day. And for anyone who's listening, I tell people it's extremely important that you combine the glasses with behavior cues. And what that means is, knowing the importance of sunlight and knowing how important it is to go and connect with this natural light outdoors. So even when you wear these glasses indoors, I ask people to, rather than taking cigarette breaks, to take sunlight breaks and go outdoors from time to time and expose their eyes to natural sunlight.
Yeah.
And the evening glasses, basically during the evening, after the sun has set, transitioning into the Viva evening glasses will allow the neurons in the eyes to send a signal to your body and nervous system that finally it's time to wind down and relax. So basically, they block all of the blue and they keep just enough green so you can still socialize, drive, work, cook, without feeling too sleepy, right? And this really separates us from other orange tinted glasses in the market because, again, after testing so many, we've realized that the majority were either not blocking enough blue, or they were blocking too much green. And the problem with this is anytime you block too much green, you become too sleepy. And anytime you don't block enough blue, you're still stimulating yourselves in ways that are not natural. So
Right.
basically, we designed a technology that mimics the bonfire color temperature. How would you feel
Mhm.
around a bonfire? I don't know if you've been around a
Yeah, no,
bonfire.
it's very, very therapeutic, and you feel you're eased and relaxed. Yeah.
Exactly. So you feel relaxed, you feel carefree. Yet you will still have enough energy to cook, dance, and socialize with your friends. And
Hmm.
basically, this is the concept of the evening glasses.
I see.
Now, finally, the nighttime glasses. Um, Basically, those are designed for as soon as you complete your evening activities. You will find that wearing the Viva nighttime glasses for about 2 hours before bed will give you access to those elevated states of sleep that you probably haven't had for a while. Like you probably agree, Dash, is it's sometimes difficult to switch off after long hours of driving your business and juggling multiple challenges throughout the day. And I,
Hmm.
I know I know personally as a business owner and practitioner that can be sometimes difficult to switch off. And
Absolutely.
and basically I love my nighttime glasses because they are designed to emulate full darkness or the end of the fire, when the wood turns into amber coil. And by
Mm.
this time you probably feel cozy, sleepy, and ready for bed. So this is the nighttime glasses. They block all of the blue and all of the green, and they decrease the brightness of light by 15 times. You probably Dash have heard Dr. Andrew Huberman touching upon the point that it's not only about blue and green light, it's also about brightness, because
Mm.
would like stop, I don't know, like they would like turn on their Juve light at night, which is like red light, but it's extremely bright, and those
Right.
light also like could disturb our circadian clock and trigger the master clock in the brain in ways that we don't want at night.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, so this really separates us from other red tinted glasses in the market. Um, Also after testing several of those, we realized that the majority of them they were leaking. And again, coming back to the quinoa example, it's as if you were
Yeah.
trying to rinse your quinoa, in a strainer that has little holes in it. It's basically inefficient, right?
Yeah, Rudy, that's absolutely awesome. I absolutely have learned a tremendous amount about light, more so than I ever could have anticipated. So I definitely want to to thank you for your time, and I truly appreciate your analogies. I think that they really simplify the process for me. I know we're coming up on time here, and you got to run, so we want to be respectful. So, two questions I'll quickly ask you is. We're recording this towards the end of May. By the time it comes out, it'll be sometime in July probably. And at that time, a lot of interns are going to be starting, and they're going to spend extra hours, even more so than an intern does on during the intern year, which can be pretty grueling, as Darsh knows. So they might want to pick up a pair. So the first question is, where can they find you? Where can they learn more about this type of stuff, about light therapy, about Viva Rays, and maybe picking up either a nighttime or daytime, or maybe a set of all three? And then also, what's next for you? What are you excited about, and what are things that are down the pipeline that's coming for Viva Rays?
Yeah, definitely. So, for the interns and for anyone who's interested in learning more about light and picking up a pair of Viva Rays, they can visit www.vivarays.com, Vivarays. And they could also follow us on Instagram and Facebook, where we share a lot of our educational material. We also have a free ebook that they could subscribe to on our website. It's called Light: The Key to Mastering your sleep and energy. And this ebooklet is amazing because it's basically packed with beautiful information that is very digestible and that would help anyone, whether they're a beginner or even a more experienced person, to start harnessing the power of light right away. And yeah, I'm actually also really excited about our latest innovation. It's called the Clip and Go, and we haven't even launched this on our website yet. We
Okay.
actually had it exclusive for the Perfect Practice event, which was a big event for functional medicine practitioners. And
Hmm.
after the presentation, we went out of stock in 3 days. So right now we're
Wow.
excited to have it back in stock. And the reason why I'm excited about the Clip and Go is because by now you've probably have seen that we need three different lenses in order to adapt to the different times of the day, which and this can get really expensive very
Hmm.
quickly. Buying three different frames, and especially for people who wear prescription. So
Yeah.
what we saw that usually like people start thinking whether they need to choose one over the other, depending on the health challenges and on the budget. However, we have long known that choosing one over the other will leave the puzzle incomplete. So we
Hmm.
really wanted to empower our clients with this super powerful tool so they'll be able to fully take control of their light exposure. And this is why I'm really excited to share with you about our latest innovation, Clip and Go. You finally don't need to buy three different frames and carry them
Hmm.
all around, because our convenient innovation system will allow you to seamlessly transition from one lens to another and to block the right amount of junk light throughout the whole day. And beside the great convenience and comfort, this system is much more affordable.
Yeah, Rudy, I absolutely love that, and I agree with you. I think that's a great idea. I remember, when I was connecting with you, I was trying to ask you like, hey, which ones do you think are more beneficial? Do I need all three? I
Yeah.
I have prescription, and I was kind of deciding the two, but now with this Clip and Go, I mean, yeah, it's going to be seamless, like you said. It seems like where it's going to be a lot more convenient. Rudy, I also want to thank you and acknowledge you. Thank you for connecting with me. I know when I was looking for blue blockers, you were, very easygoing and knowledgeable, and that's the first thing I noticed about Viva Rays is you were delving into the science versus other companies when I was asking them. And that's how I knew I could trust you. I
Mm.
also want to just thank you for joining us today. And, in an hour and a half, you kept this very, very digestible, very easy to understand, great analogies. And I think a lot of people out there are struggling to understand light because it's such a complicated topic. And I think you've done a great job. So thank you. I do have one last question for you that we ask all of our guests. Given that light is such an important topic, and I think globally we're seeing artificial light increase in all of our eyes, how do we put the health back in healthcare? I know you're in Canada, we're in the States, we have different healthcare systems. But if we're talking on a global perspective, how can we all get healthier and really change that?
Well, Darsh, by now you've probably noticed that in Viva Rays, it's not only about the glasses. It's much more than this.
Yeah.
It's about the lifestyle. It's about our behavior around the environment that we live in. So
Hmm.
Viva Rays, we envision elevating humanity's light environment to a whole new level of alignment with nature, enabling peak performance energy, true happiness, and peace through an abundance of healthy light throughout the day, and optimal sleep, active recovery, and healing through a lot of darkness, ambient light at night. So, uh, my mission and my drive is and the way I envision bringing health into this world is by educating people deeper and deeper about all of the steps of what I call the full spectrum diet, which goes much deeper than what I touched upon today. I actually broke it down into 8 different steps that people can take today, um, in order to experience what I call optimal health. And optimal health is this state where it's much beyond prevention. It's a state where we are accessing an abundant energy throughout the whole day that allow us to achieve all of the great things that we want to bring in this beautiful world.
Yeah.
So uh, I envision taking people on this journey, helping them understand all of the steps of the full spectrum diet more and more. And hopefully, very soon, with our collaboration with Dr. Sachin Patel and some other investors, we'll be able to bring some light innovations into the space that will literally elevate humanity's light environment to a whole new level. And this is
Hmm.
how I envision contributing into the healthcare system, so to speak.
Absolutely. I love it. And we are on that journey with you. Again, Roudy, thank you so much, man.
Thanks so much, Darsh. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Roudy.
I really hope you all learned something new in that episode, right? Something that we often don't think about, something that we're not really taught, right? Light, something that coexists with life, and how important that is to our overall health. I know I was super fascinated by this episode, and it definitely changed my lifestyle, so that, I essentially can now use the benefits of light for optimal health instead of making it my enemy. And as promised, the code that you can use is DARSH15. So that's DARSH 15, and that will save you 15% on your order. And again, guys, I truly believe that these glasses will change your sleep and health. It definitely has for me. And this is a company that is committed to innovating. They've recently just launched their clip and go lenses. So if you're someone who wears prescription glasses, you can just buy one set of glasses and then buy the different clips so that you can just change it whenever you want. And one last thing before we go, remember Advice Media. Don't forget to schedule a consult with them to receive a $60 gift card and strategic insight on what your current digital marketing is doing or not doing for you. Contact Advice Media at drpodcastnetwork.com/advice media. Again, that's drpodcastnetwork.com/advice media. And for our disclosure, everything in this podcast is for educational purposes only. It does not constitute the practice of medicine, and we are not providing medical advice. No physician-patient relationship is formed, and anything discussed in this podcast does not represent the views of our employers. We recommend that you seek the guidance of your personal physician regarding any specific health-related issues. Thanks again for stopping by, sticking through this episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it, learned a lot. And again, please rate, review, share, and subscribe.